Hey, 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 it's Drew. Welcome back to Masters and Mixes. It's definitely been a while, but the reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. Which, speaking of making a comeback, something you may or may not be aware of is the musical term the sophomore slump, where a promising young artist bursts onto the scene and releases a fantastic debut record, but their second, the follow-up, is a bit of a letdown compared to the first album. There have been plenty of sophomore slumps that have come out this year, Clairo, Billie Eilish, but we're actually not going to talk about this today. We're actually talking about the reverse of a sophomore slump, where a sophomore album is much, much better than the debut. 3 long years after releasing Lush in 2018, Snail Mail is finally back with LP Valentine. Snail Mail is the brainchild of indie rock icon and media darling Lindsey Jordan, which Lush's release in 2018 put Lindsey squarely in the front of the rapidly growing movement of young women making indie rock with lots of feelings and lots of guitars. See also Phoebe Bridgers and Soccer Mommy. But in all reality, Snail Mail is different, to the point that publications were seeing her as the next big thing, going so far as to title her the future of indie rock. Which that wasn't necessarily a bad take on the merits. However, it was emblematic of much more serious issues that were plaguing Jordan at the time. Everyone wanted to know all about her. The media couldn't get enough of her. Fans wouldn't leave her alone. Jordan was so overwhelmed with so much attention at a young age that she was actually going through rehab for over a month, which is an experience she does document on the album Valentine. Being away from normal life or being forced to hit pause, as she described it helped her to find more excitement in making music again and to have a joy and a passion for what she was doing with Snail Mail, which that joy, that passion and excitement had pretty clearly spilled over into this record, into Valentine. Right at the start of this record, probably my favorite aspect of the record and what is most obviously the biggest sonic change from Lush in 2018 is Lindsey Jordan's voice. It's so clearly progressed and so different from her last work, and it's so obviously shown on the title track, Valentine, where she's hoarse, she's impassioned, and her vocal texturing sets so much personality into the song. The track itself is just as catchy and forceful as the hit track Pristine from Lush, but I find it perhaps even more memorable than Pristine for its raw anger, as well as the excellent drumming here. As is the case with most of the tracks on the record, her love, her Valentine, is in disrepair. It's in stress, and Jordan is quite angry about it, as is documented in the lyrics. She's snarling out, "Why do you want to erase me, darling Valentine," with more force and more anger than I've heard on any previous Snail Mail music. Ben Franklin is the following song, and it's equally as impressive a vocal performance as Valentine, with Jordan growling out the chorus, "Sucker for the pain, ha honey." Ben Franklin is a stylistic departure I had never expected from Snail Mail, but I'm certainly not complaining about the hooky bass and diving synths here. Jordan's good friend and indie folk star of Waxahachie fame, Katie Crutchfield, provides backing vocals here as well. The R&B influences are not just limited to Ben Franklin, however, as the album's standout track and centerpiece, Forever Sailing, samples hushed percussion and chorus melody from the song of the same name by Madeleine Kane. And while the track certainly wears those R&B influences on its sleeve, it's also remarkably somehow a tasteful experience of yacht rock here in 2021. The song is undoubtedly one of my tracks of the year, with Jordan questioning her experiences with betrayal with lyrics like, "Doesn't obsession just become me?" Automate is the perfect example of the growth Jordan has seen in developing her own indie rock sound since Lush. Although she's quite certainly drawn heavily from 90s rockers like Liz Phair, the crunchy distortion and booming percussion which drives the track even lurching forward is certainly Snail Mail's own. Elsewhere, tracks like Madonna and Glory are also emblematic of the changes Jordan's sound has seen in the last 3 years. These changes that envelop her sophomore record are mostly good. The song structures and layouts are far more varied and accessible than Lush, but even with these stylistic departures and changes and developments, Snail Mail's original calling card of painfully emotional lyricism is quite prevalent on this record. Light Blue and Mia are both beautiful examples of Snail Mail's knack for lyricism, both being acoustic ballads about love, although one is certainly much more upbeat and carefree than the other. I'll let you figure that out from listening. With that said, the record is not without flaws. While her singing was generally my favorite aspect of the album, Jordan's singing abilities are certainly limited in places, and Lush's fatal flaw of tracks really blending together and not really separating themselves at all is certainly present on this record, especially once you get to about midway through. But realistically, this is everything I could have wanted from a second Snail Mail release. It's energetic, it's in your face, and it's easily the most accessible work she's put out yet. I can't help but think about the other sophomore albums that came out this year. Quite similarly, thematically, are Clairo's Sling and Billie Eilish's Happier Than Ever. All three records deal with this concept of grappling with being thrust into the media spotlight at a young age and being the focus of a generation musically and culturally, while these young artists don't necessarily have the ability to deal with the stress and this pressure of being put under the spotlight. But I find that Valentine is far more musically captivating than either of the other two records. Snail Mail, Valentine, 9 out of 10. I appreciate you watching, and if you want to support me, you can always subscribe here, or you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook.
I'm coming for you, Fantano.